between India and Canada continues as India has now put out a strongly worded travel advisory to all Indian citizens planning to travel to Canada. This is, of course, in response to the Canadian advisory, which was updated for its citizens in the wake of this fresh standoff between Ottawa and New Delhi. Now, Canada's Five Eyes allies, with whom they have intelligence sharing pacts, three of them, the United States, the UK and Australia, have come out and made public comments about this controversy. They are treading a bit of a fine line, waiting for more details on the investigation, waiting for more details of what Mr. Trudeau called credible allegations of potential links with Indian government officials. But here's the interesting thing. None of these allies, none of these treaty allies of Canada have gone on to publicly condemn or censure India or even say that they believe what the Canadian Prime Minister is saying. We've also managed here at CNN News 18 to bring back a video from 2017 where Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the man in question, who was killed in the middle of June in Surrey, in British Columbia, he is seen openly brandishing an automatic weapon, an AK-47, something which is by law not permissible in Canada. So the question is, why is Canada, why is Justin Trudeau and his government going to such great lengths, even potentially jeopardizing one of its most important diplomatic relationships, that with India, when all the other G7 countries are valuing the relationship with India? Why are they doing this, and why are they going to such lengths, all for a person with rather dubious credentials? But first, the story of how this diplomatic standoff between Ottawa and New Delhi has been escalated one notch further a day after those dramatic allegations by the Canadian Prime Minister.
Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty. In the strongest possible terms, I continue to urge the government of India to cooperate with Canada to get to the bottom of this matter.
All right, so this has been a while coming. I want to put a timeline to the events of the last 2 weeks or so. It started with the G20 meeting, on the sidelines of which there was a pull-aside bilateral between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Trudeau, in which there was a very strongly worded statement that came at the end of that pull-aside, where Prime Minister Modi raised the issue of this Khalistani separatism with Justin Trudeau. Trudeau then went on to address a press conference on that same day, and we were all there at the media center when he said, and he tried to frame this entire Khalistani separatism as a freedom of speech issue which is protected in Canada. Trudeau also raised an alarm over what he called foreign interference. He said this in that press conference at the G20. Then, 8 days later, Trudeau claims Indian involvement, potential Indian involvement in the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He says this publicly. He says this in front of the Parliament of Canada. Canada then subsequently expels an Indian diplomat, the station head Pawan Kumar Rai, who was based in Ottawa, the High Commission there. The next day, the Ministry of External Affairs responds to it, calls these charges absurd and motivated and simply meant to divert attention from the safe haven that Canada has become for some of these Khalistani separatist elements. Also, the MEA in that statement says that this was simply to divert attention. India then reciprocates by expelling a Canadian diplomat, Olivier Sylvester, who was also the station head for Canada here in the mission in New Delhi. The MEA then cites concerns over anti-India activities that are being carried out on Canadian soil. After that, Canada updates its India travel advisory in the wake of this controversy, asking its citizens to exercise caution, particularly those who are going to Kashmir and some parts of the Northeast, etc. Then the MEA, in response to that, has updated its own travel advisory to those Indians who are traveling to Canada or plan to travel to Canada, using similar language, asking them to exercise caution. MEA has also urged Indians to avoid sensitive regions and political venues. Now, this is the timeline of what has happened over the last couple of weeks. But here's the thing. This is a video back from 2017. CNN News 18 first aired this video in February of 2017. We have brought this back. This was a video that we accessed through an intelligence source. It shows Hardeep Singh Nijjar using a banned AK-47 rifle. Now, unlike in the United States, in Canada, semi-automatic and fully automatic weapons, assault rifles, are banned by law. Individual citizens cannot carry them. At best, you can carry shotguns, you can carry hunting gear, you can carry, of course, handguns and pistols. But you cannot carry heavy-duty assault weapons like AK-47s. Here you can see Nijjar in this video, not just brandishing this weapon, but you can see him training. Not just himself, but also training other Khalistani recruits. There's one other person who can be seen in this video. This video, like I said, we aired this first in February of 2017. And we're bringing this back to try and underline the point that Nijjar was not some holy soul. He was clearly a person with dubious credentials. We talked about this yesterday as well, that how he took a good 10 years plus to get his citizenship, because multiple times, on at least 3 occasions, his citizenship in Canada was rejected because the immigration authorities felt that he was using dubious means. So why then, and this is the question that we asked right at the top of the show, why is Canada and why is the Trudeau government going to such great lengths to try and defend a man whose record is rather dubious in and of itself? Joining us now, we have a very special guest here in our studios. Raymond Vickery is a senior associate with the Centre for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you very much and welcome to India. Welcome to the studios of CNN News 18. We also have other guests who are joining us via satellite. We have Jeepart Sarthi, former Indian High Commissioner. Lieutenant General KJ Singh is former GOC&C of the Western Command. And Daniel Brodman is a senior Canadian journalist. Mr. Vickery, I just outlined, the video and this whole tense diplomatic standoff that's been going on between India and Canada. When a Prime Minister stands up in Parliament and says, we have credible allegations of a potential link of Indian government officials in the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, you would imagine that there would be on the record evidence or some kind of backup to that claim. Because this is a huge claim to be making of a foreign government, and for a Prime Minister to be standing in Parliament and making that claim. Have you seen any evidence? Would the evidence be shared, particularly with the Five Eyes partners? Would it be shared with India? Why would a Prime Minister go to such great lengths to do this if he's not sure of the evidence?
Well, that is the basic question, and you put your finger right on it. On the face of it, it's astounding and absurd for a Prime Minister to stand up without presenting evidence. And if you look at the language, there's a language about possible and potential and so forth, as opposed to the very facts which would support it. And I think Prime Minister Trudeau is in very, very deep problems unless he can present those kind of facts in pretty short order. You may have seen the film, of course you did, from the parliamentary session when people were backing him up. Mm-hmm. But already the leader of the opposition is saying, you better come up with the facts and pretty darn quick. Or else your career is basically going to be ended.
What would the bar for that evidence be? How high should the bar for that evidence be for him to have said something like this and so publicly? And look at the ramifications of it. It's literally put the relationship, the diplomatic relationship, in jeopardy.
Well, I think that, the basic criminal bar has to be met. It has to be beyond a reasonable doubt that you can have this, because what you're doing is throwing not only Canadian relations with India into turmoil, but as you've mentioned, all of the Five Eyes are drawn into this, not only the United States, but others. And so after we have made so much progress that I've been personally working on for about 30 years to do this, I think you have to meet a very, very high standard, not just the kind of reports. When I was in government, you saw all kinds of reports from the CIA, and some of them panned out and some of them didn't, and that's not sufficient to do the kind of thing that he's done.
So let me ask Ambassador Parthasarathy this. We have put out this video of Nijjar. Like I said, we put it out on air first in 2017. He is seen brandishing and using a weapon which is banned in Canada. Ordinary citizens are not allowed to carry these kind of semi-automatic or fully automatic weapons. Unlike in the US, in Canada and most other Western societies, you're not allowed to carry such heavy weapons. So why would a government, a prime minister, go to such great lengths to defend a character who is seemingly dubious? I mean, forget about this video for a moment, Ambassador Parthasarathy. Even his entry into Canada, the first time he applied for asylum, it was rejected. He married a woman there of Indian origin, a Canadian woman of Indian origin. Again, it was rejected because the immigration authorities were not convinced of his intentions. And it was rejected a third time. And somehow in 2015, and this is if you go by the current Immigration Minister of Canada, in 2015, he became a citizen. He enters in 1997. The Canadian authorities wait till 2015 to give him citizenship. Surely, this is not a character who's above board.
Well, look, I think you have to look at the Trudeau factor along with this, many other things. I think he's got himself too tied up with the Muslim and the Sikh population in Canada. He thinks they're going to deliver results to him and has gone out, bent backwards to accommodate them. Especially the Sikhs and now more recently even the Muslim community. So he has these peculiar things. I mean, it's very strange. We had such a close relationship with Canada where our intelligence agency, the RAW, had an official posted there to liaise with Canadian intelligence. And here is this man going completely off the board and forgetting this sort of a relationship. He has, I don't know what sort of deals he struck, but he seems to believe that the limited number of Pakistani Muslims who've come there and whatever have come by way of the Sikhs, they are going to be a great electoral asset. Remember one fact. His own political position in Canada is dicey, close.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been a great prime minister bringing glory to Canada since then. And I think right now, he's going to extremes. He's going to do things which I can't imagine a rational Canadian prime minister doing. And we have reached out to him. Mr. Modi has reached out to him. But the way he has been sort of seeking support from the population which is coming from Pakistan and from this flow of 770,000 Sikhs from India who are being brainwashed by the Pakistanis there. I know where there is a strong Pakistani presence there. And people who have gone, in all honesty, are being made into Khalistanis.
Okay.
So he is guilty of a hell of a lot.
Lieutenant General KJ Singh, this comes at a time when, the so-called Khalistan sentiment is almost near absent in Punjab. If anywhere it should have been alive, if indeed there is this grouse within the Sikh community and the diaspora is all sort of hyper about it, then, there is no resonance at all, not even an iota in Punjab. In fact, one of our reporters went to Punjab recently to the village of Amritpal Singh, this man who's been arrested now and who's in a jail in Assam. There's not a single Khalistan or pro-Khalistan poster or graffiti or slogan anywhere in that village. There's absolutely zero sentiment in heartland Punjab. So then why should we believe that Justin Trudeau suddenly wants to revive and support this Khalistani constituency? I mean, yes, how much of it is domestic political compulsions? I'm just trying to understand where that domestic political compulsion is coming from, because in the heart of Punjab, like I said, no one is asking for a separate Khalistan state.
See, Zaka, Jai Hind, it's good to be on your show on a very important issue. See, the problem is he is being controlled by Jagmeet Singh Dhaliwal Jimmy from National Democratic Party. And what he's managed to do is the Indian diaspora in Canada has got divided also. I have friends there who tell me that it's just the fringe element. The large silent majority is not approving what he's doing. And as a person who's living in Indian Punjab, I have a legitimate query that why are you making it difficult for my state?
Yeah.
There is today our intelligence agencies have put out the list of people who are hiding in Canada, from Lawrence Bishnoi and all other gangs over there. Now, from there, they are orchestrating very dastardly acts over here. In judicial premises, in Ludhiana in a court, they are targeting people like Sidhu Moosewala, who was an icon of sorts, who was a political leader. He had fought an election, though he had lost that election. So you are destabilizing a border state of ours. And how can I tolerate that? You have all kinds of fugitives who've taken shelter over there.
Okay.
And many of them are dependent on drugs. So you are training them, you are arming them, you're funding them, and you are vectoring them to come back and create chaos here. So certainly that is not acceptable to us. And we have a right to demand that you extradite these people, you take action against them. And instead of doing that, he has brought his own diaspora into a divisive kind of state, very irresponsible. And I wonder what kind of a political leader he is, Zaka.
So let me ask Daniel Broadman this. People have been talking about the Five Eyes intelligence pact, sharing pact that the US, Canada, UK, Australia, etc. have. So if indeed the Prime Minister of Canada says that there are credible allegations, A, that intel has to be shared with the other four countries, it has to meet that high bar to the extent that the Prime Minister publicly in Parliament in front of everyone made this serious allegation. And none of these countries, Mr. Boardman, the US, UK and Australia so far have reacted. Their foreign ministers have reacted. And none of them has publicly said anything, either by way of censure or condemnation or even concern about what the Prime Minister of Canada called potential Indian role in the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. So it's not just India that he needs to convince his own allies to start with, none of whom have taken a position so far at least.
No, they haven't, and you couldn't expect them to under these circumstances. It's also worth mentioning that Canada's been on the outs with Five Eyes over the last few years. There have been reports that Five Eyes intelligence sharing hasn't been going through Canada because of concerns of, foreign interference from hostile actors, not India. So I mean, from the Canadian perspective, like what's really going on in Canada? This is really a story about Pakistani foreign interference being played as a story of Indian foreign interference, when the real story in Canada should be the Chinese foreign interference. So this is the context of all of this. And you're right. If you want to start a fight with a geopolitical ally, one, don't do that. Two, if it's a major geopolitical ally that has 1 billion plus people and the only possible hedge against China that we have in the world, if you're going to start a fight with them and they share similar allies, and you need your allies to back you, you're going to need some pretty hard proof. You're going to need an email from Modi to assassin McKill, like, CC, I want you to kill this guy in Canada on this date, here's the money. If you don't have that, and I don't think they do, then of course no one's going to back you. Who would be crazy enough to back Canada over India? Listen, we can all have principles, but if you're not going to provide evidence, no one's going to throw away trade deals in a time of inflation and food insecurity and global instability to go along with Justin Trudeau's personal vendetta against India, which is what it looks like to the rest of the world, and it looks like that to 70% of the country here. So I don't understand what the win condition is for Canada. I can't see a win condition. I mean, we just have to hope that he wakes up tomorrow and says, sorry, everyone, I was just using some gendered language. And when I said India did it, that means India didn't do it. whoopsies. This is the best case scenario we're facing now because, as you said, like there's no way the Five Eyes are going to come in. Our real problem is Chinese foreign interference. This is a story of a Pakistani-funded Khalistani movement metastasizing and getting into our politics and causing a major geopolitical rift between us and an ally. And the Canadian people are frankly being gaslighted in the matter.
How does it play to the rest of the world? I mean, it's evident, especially after the G20 and a successful G20 that New Delhi hosted. The entire Western world, the G7 countries, right, from the United States, UK, Japan, they're all courting India. Albeit, everyone knows the Western world has this view that if a country can take on or be a counterweight to China, it is India. So yes, it is in those interests. And the only G7 country which sticks out like a sore thumb, which is not doing that and which is actively going, I would say out of its way to deteriorate this relationship is Canada. Surely something's off. I mean, when the view from the White House and the view from 10 Downing and the view from Australia at this complete souring of ties, they would be concerned. They would be absolutely concerned about this. Do you think there would be now back channels from those countries to the Canadian Foreign Office and to the Canadian Prime Minister's office that, okay, I mean, you've got to pull this back a notch or two?
Well, I think that it is certainly the case that there are a lot of back-channel communications going on because of the devastating impact that this has. But I don't think it's a matter of just weighing one power against another, who's the bigger trading partner and who's more important. I think really it's a question of values, and I think that the Canadians have to understand how much it is hurting the cause of building peace and prosperity among democracies to do this kind of action. When I was in government, the ambassador from India to the United States was S.S. Ray, who had been governor of Punjab during the problems in the 80s and 90s. And I came to understand from my conversations with then Ambassador Ray how very, very volatile and difficult this is as an issue. And for a prime minister of a country not to understand that the values which the democracies hold dear are being damaged unless there is absolute proof is really unforgivable. And I think, as I say, unless this comes up in very short order, you won't have to worry about Mr. Trudeau in leadership position. He's going to be gone because you can't do this sort of thing.
So you're saying if the so-called credible allegations that he's referring to does not pass muster, forget about Indian muster, does not pass muster with Canada's own allies, the US, UK, Australia, etc., then this is almost like political career suicide?
I think he's finished. I don't think, I'm not an expert on Canadian politics, but I do know that the Canadians share these kinds of values, and they may stand up now if there is a statement like this. But we have parliamentary systems in India and in Canada, and you can see that just doesn't go. You can't just say it and have it done. This is not Russia. This is not China, where when the top guy says it, it becomes the truth. You have to have some proof, and that's the way a democracy is supposed to work.
And the truth has a higher standard. So, which is why I'm coming back to this, G. Parthasarathy. Domestic political compulsions, yes, I buy that. All countries have domestic political compulsions. But what are you putting in the balance in the name of domestic political compulsions? You've a very important diplomatic relationship today is in the doldrums. There are an FTA at a time when, the Western world is dealing with inflation. COVID has depressed growth across countries, across economies. An FTA has been put on hold. There are about, I think, $12 or $15 billion of trade has been put on hold. I mean, the relationship really is in the gutter, and it's entirely of Canada and Mr. Trudeau's making.
I'll tell you one more thing which Mr. Trudeau has sort of destroyed. The fact of the matter is, Canada and India are two countries who have intelligence agents in each other's countries, reporting and gathering information from each other. You'll be sharing intelligence in this manner, which we do with very few countries. And because Canada was a plural and is, I would say, a pluralistic democracy. I don't know what has eaten up this young man. His father was certainly a very balanced person and one dealt with. Sure, you had problems, but you dealt with them. But there is, storming in for meeting with Mr. Modi in Delhi and then, raising all sorts of issues. It is really disturbing. And really, I hope, and I'm looking forward to the West, they will not do it publicly. I hope our Western friends, particularly the US, the Brits, the Australians, they advise him that you're isolating
General KG is saying
the country, and
one thing that stands out is, okay, there is a school, there is a view that Trudeau is doing this because of personal vendetta, retribution, payback, because of all the embarrassment that he had to sort of suffer here in Delhi when he was here for the G20, whether it was the cold reception he got, he didn't turn up for the dinner on the first day of the G20, his plane malfunctioned. You don't, even if you're doing this for personal retribution, you don't climb an escalatory ladder. At the very first step, the Prime Minister goes in front of everyone in Parliament and makes such a serious allegation against a foreign government. There is an escalatory ladder. You share this intelligence, you raise this with intelligence agents, then you go to the foreign minister's level, and then you go to the heads of state or heads of government level. Again, in private. And if it is not resolved there, then you think of making public action. Mr. Trudeau's first step, at least as far as the reference to the Nijjar case, and I want to point this to our viewers. Nijjar was killed on the 18th of June, right? It's been 3 months since then. Not one person has been named, not one person has been charged for the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And the Prime Minister of Canada goes up in Parliament and says there are credible allegations of a foreign hand. What are we to believe? If there are credible allegations, put them in a charge sheet, put those names in a charge sheet.
See, Zaka, firstly, I don't fully subscribe to what is reported in some parts of media. India did enough and more than enough to extend all courtesies to Premier Trudeau.
Yeah.
All courtesies were extended. If he chose to skip the official gala dinner and go to a restaurant, it is his call. It's not that we didn't give him the invite. We even offered in the services of an Air India aircraft to take him back. So, whatever he's done is his own choice. And if he came with a premeditated kind of a design in his mind to escalate this beyond his control, then it is his calling. Very immature calling, I would say. And if I was in his place, Zaka, frankly, I'll feel relieved that in this inter-gang warfare which is going on in Sikh fringe groups in Canada, this man, Nijjar, has gone. He was no good to anybody.
Yeah.
He had solid differences with Malik, Ripudaman Singh Malik.
Yeah.
And it is a common knowledge that Nijjar had got Ripudaman Malik bumped off because Ripudaman Malik had come to Golden Temple, had asked for repentance and had accepted that he has made mistake. So in this inter-gang kind of a fringe group warfare, if one man is gone and who's not worth putting country's interests at stake,
Correct.
Trudeau should be happy. He's gone by whatever method.
Okay.
For who perishes like this, it is good for them.
Okay, let me ask Daniel Boardman, and I'll end with this. I'm curious to know how this plays out domestically in Canada, what may be the political fallout of it. As Raymond Vickery was saying, if this goes wrong, if the evidence that he claims Canadian officials have, and if he fails to make this public, and if this evidence doesn't meet the high standard that it requires before making such a big allegation in public, does it politically mean the end of Justin Trudeau? Because he's put an entire relationship in jeopardy based on these allegations, which he calls are credible. How does this domestically play out? Pierre Poilievre, who is the leader of the opposition, initially seemed receptive to what Trudeau was saying, but then very, very soon he climbed back and he said the Prime Minister needs to reveal more. He hasn't said anything to me in private any more than what he has said in Parliament. So the onus really is in Trudeau's court, and he has to meet the high standard of evidence to be made available publicly to have credibility to those allegations. How does this play out domestically, politically for Justin Trudeau?
So, yeah, okay. Canadians generally like to stick their head in the sand and ignore things, and we like to think of ourselves as good global citizens. What creates a Canadian controversy is when other international media start talking negatively about Canada. That's when we pay attention. So this is not going to help him. Now, does this destroy him politically? Listen, Justin Trudeau's done worse. He's been caught ethics violations, breaking the law, the SNC-Lavalin scandal, faking intelligence to invoke the Emergencies Act. Justin Trudeau's been able to get away with all of this because, the media is very friendly and, he's judge, jury, and executioner of his own trial. So he's found himself innocent, or his MPs have, on multiple things. This isn't how foreign policy is going to work. He can't get a liberal aligned judge to adjudicate the Canada-India dispute. Now, is this going to mean the end? If it's proven that he was absolutely lying, he's still going to make it to 2025, because the way the Canadian system is now, they have a minority government and they're being propped up in a coalition with Jagmeet Singh and the NDP. And Jagmeet Singh is a hardcore Khalistani. I mean, Jagmeet Singh's already concluded the investigation. Jagmeet's on a plane right now with handcuffs to bring Modi back to jail in Canada. Like, Jagmeet's gotten to the bottom of it. He already knows he's arresting everyone in India. So if this is proven false, is Jagmeet Singh not going to back him? Jagmeet Singh is a man who took 3 tries to admit that the Air India bombing was real, an act of terrorism, and not done by the Indian government. So this is the guy propping up his government. Is that guy going to be unhappy if he's proven to be a flat-out liar about India? No, that just brings him closer. So Justin Trudeau's underwater. The election's going to be a landslide victory for the Conservatives in 2025, though. The problem is the Liberals and the NDP have made this Faustian bargain, and Jagmeet and Justin, they're going to get to 2025, they get their pensions, the parties will get destroyed, but they got another year left to say ridiculous things about Canada and India, and maybe start another geopolitical fight with, pick a random country, who knows where.
Okay, all right. Raymond Vickery, you want to give a closing comment on how you see this playing out for Justin Trudeau?
Well, I see that you have to understand, first of all, Canada only has 40 million people in it. And so there's a greater percentage of Sikh population in Canada than there is in India. So you can see the kind of political pressure that is here. But that is completely insufficient to do what has been done here, but it's the only explanation that seems to bear anything. One hopes that the man will either come up with concrete proof or admit that he's done a grievous wrong, not only to Canada, India, but to the entire international system.
Yep, and to Indo-Canadians more than anything else. I mean, he's put the safety of Indo-Canadians, there are over 1 million of them, many of them with Sikh origins. He's put their safety under threat. He's put their safety under threat by saying that the Indian government and Indian government officials were involved in the killing of a man who openly advocated for secessionism, a man who openly advocated for a separate state of Khalistan, a sentiment that finds almost zero takers in heartland Punjab, right? So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much to all our guests. I don't think this diplomatic story is going to get over soon. At least the sense that you're getting from the Indian government and from the MEA is that they will only reciprocate if Canada takes precipitative action. So they expelled a diplomat, so a diplomat from Canada was expelled. They revised a travel advisory. India's also issued a revised travel advisory. So it is going to be reciprocal in nature, whatever diplomatic action that they take. But we'll wait and see how this plays out, because I don't think this is the end of the diplomatic story between Ottawa and New Delhi. Let's now move on to the other big story. After a marathon debate for over 8 hours, the Women's Reservation Bill has cleared the Lok Sabha. A whopping 454 members of Parliament backed the bill, with just 2 MPs, both from the AIMIM, opposed to the bill. The bill was hailed by Home Minister Amit Shah as an essential push for women's empowerment, But the Congress party's charge, led by Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi, call for the immediate implementation of the bill as well as the inclusion of an OBC sub-quota within the larger quota for women. The BJP has said that a delimitation exercise and a census is a basic constitutional protocol for the passage of the bill. The bill will now head to the Rajya Sabha, the upper house, where it's likely to sail through as well. And then, of course, the president gives her assent and it becomes law.
कुछ पार्टियों के लिए महिला सशक्तिकरण एक राजनीतिक मुद्दा हो सकता है, परंतु मेरी पार्टी और मेरे नेता नरेंद्र मोदी जी के लिए महिला सशक्तिकरण राजनीतिक मुद्दा नहीं है।
भारतीय राष्ट्रीय कांग्रेस की मांग कि यह बिल फौरन अमल में लाया जाए।
I stand in support of the Women's Reservation Bill. There is one thing, in my view, that makes this bill incomplete. I would like to have seen OBC reservation included in this bill.
All right, joining us now is K. Kavita, BRS MLC, and also a woman politician who's been in politics for a very long time. Thank you very much, ma'am. First things first, you must have seen these historic scenes. The Lok Sabha has passed this women's reservation bill. 33% of seats in the Lok Sabha and the state legislatures will be reserved for women. As a woman politician who's been around for a number of years now, fighting the system, fighting the odds that are stacked up against women, the passage of the bill today, what does such a moment mean for you and for all women politicians?
Well, it's long pending to begin with, but yes, very happy, very elated to see the process underway, and I hope by the time we end the interview, the bill will be passed as well. So there were apprehensions when the bill was introduced that what will happen, what will be in the bill, etc. It's a tad disappointing that the 33% OBC quota is not involved, but we will work for it, we will continue to work for it. And second factor is that if the government is saying we will pass the bill now but we will only implement it later, that is something that women are a little disappointed with, because we can do it right away. There is a possibility, there is a precedent that this government has done in multiple, at umpteen number of occasions they have utilized 2011 census as the bill. So it can still be implemented, but do not know why government has taken a decision of not implementing the reservation right away, starting with these 5 state elections. That is definitely disappointing. Congress party who could not put in the OBC reservation, because of the coalition government, when this government took up the bill, the only hope was that OBC quota bhi karke, they can pass the bill because of the complete and the brutal majority that this government has.
I do want to ask you what you just mentioned about the demand from the Congress, some other opposition parties as well, for OBC quota. Now, OBC quota within the larger framework of the women's reservation. We have seen in other instances the Supreme Court frown upon this whole idea of a quota within a quota. So, what would be the justification for that? And also the Congress, the bill that they brought and passed in the Rajya Sabha, what were unable to pass in the Lok Sabha more than 10 years ago in 2010, that did not have an OBC quota. That was just women's reservation. There was no quota within a quota.
Rahul Gandhi ji went on elaborately talking about how OBCs have been neglected in even bureaucracy, etc. But whose government was ruling this nation for the longest of time? It was Congress government. And if you could not do it then, why question this government? And if you were sincere in 2010, women would have gotten their due share. In fact, why I say this, I don't say this because of a political grudge, but it is a painful factor that the Congress party ignored to even mention Women's Reservation Bill in 2019, their national manifesto. So they forgot about Women's Reservation Bill in last 16 years, and now they are trying to express their sympathy towards OBC because of this election mahol. That being said, this government is again losing an opportunity which can give justice to the major section of population of this nation, and that population is not going to be very happy. And implementation of this bill, if they can do it now but yet deliberately are not doing it, women also will not resonate well to the government's decision.
Okay.
This we can clearly see on the ground, because since yesterday, a day before, women excited or all meeting all of us from every village, every place, all of them are saying the same thing. So with this elections, are we going to get the opportunity? When we said no, this government is talking about implementing it for the next election. There is disappointment among women of this nation. The government should seriously consider this factor.
So the argument from the BJP, and you heard many speakers in today's debate also talk about this, Article 82, I believe they have cited, saying that any change to the composition of a state legislature or the parliament cannot be done until there is a census exercise and a delimitation exercise. This is the protocol that is essential for any change to the structure or the composition of a state legislature or a parliament. Do you buy that argument, and what is your counter to that argument put forth by the government and the government's ministers and spokespeople who've in fact also participated in the debate today?
Not at all, because they have precedence of doing this using, when we do not have the census available, that was supposed to be made in 2021. COVID hit every nation in this world, so government could not do it in 2021. Why did not the government take up the census in 2022? Why did not they take up the census in the beginning of 2023? It is their own government's fault that now is hurting the Women's Reservation Bill. So because it is their own government's faults, they should correct it by implementing it now, and technically it is possible. Earlier you had also mentioned that the courts are giving different opinions about quota within quota.
Yeah.
But courts gave different opinion for every different state, and they gave very conflicting judgments about these reservations as a whole. So ultimately Parliament has an authority over the courts. Parliament can decide, and this Parliament, moreover, with this kind of majority, only BJP itself can pass. They don't even need their NDA partners, one or two partners who they're left with currently. They don't even need them. 303 is the number that BJP has today. They can immediately pass, they can immediately implement it with this election, this 5-state election starting.
Okay.
So ultimately, when you look at all of this, what I understand as a woman, not as a politician, is that Congress party is trying to claim credit that we bought the bill, we introduced this, we introduced that. Bharatiya Janata Party is trying to give you a half-baked bill just to hog that credit, saying that we are the ones who bought the bill, we are the ones who introduced the bill, but yet women are truly not getting their due share.
Okay. All right. K. Kavita, BRS MLC, thank you very much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Now, let's move on to what are the legal implications and perhaps even the legal complications, as some would say, as to why A, this cannot be implemented right away, why there needs to be a census exercise and then subsequently a delimitation exercise before this reservation can be implemented, and also about whether or not this idea of a quota within a quota, which the Supreme Court has frowned upon in the past, will be kosher this time around. PDT Achari is a former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha and somebody who knows the constitutionality of what's been passed today. Thank you very much for speaking with us. The Women's Reservation Bill has been passed in the Lok Sabha, overwhelming majority. The one point of contention that the opposition had been raising, not just the Congress but many other parties also, is to have OBC quota within women's reservation, a quota within quota. Would that stand the test of law according to you?
Actually, in this case, you must know that there is no reservation for OBCs in the legislatures, that is Parliament and the Assemblies. no reservation has been given so far. So how can reservation be given to the OBC women in this particular case? That may not be possible unless a general reservation for the OBC categories is given just like the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So I don't think it is possible for the government to do this in this particular bill.
The other point of contention, Mr. Achari, has been that, why are you passing this bill now before the 2024 election when you're saying that this can only be implemented after census and delimitation in 2026, and perhaps the first general election that this will be applicable for is the 2029 general election? There is an argument from the centre that they cannot break into the current composition of the Lok Sabha or state legislatures. They're citing Article 82. Again, is that a valid argument?
Well, there is some merit in that argument, because the reservation that is being provided now can be implemented only in maybe 2029 or something. That is because now there is very little time left for the next elections to the Lok Sabha. And during this period, it is not possible to carry out the redelimitation, identification of the constituencies reserved for women and so on. It involves a lot of work. Therefore, it is not possible. Then, once the next Lok Sabha comes into existence, you cannot disturb it for 5 years.
Yeah.
In the middle of the Lok Sabha's tenure, you can't introduce these things and change the composition of the Lok Sabha. Therefore, you have to wait for another 5 years, and only after that, in the meantime. And then secondly, up to 2026, the strength of the assemblies and parliament and Lok Sabha have been fixed, and it cannot be changed till 2026. The Constitution provides that. In fact, it was provided long back through an amendment. Till 2026, you will not raise the strength of the parliament or the assemblies.
Okay.
And only after that, whenever a census is taken on the basis of the census figures, then the redelimitation, etc., will be done, because a massive effort will have to be done.
All right. Mr. Achari, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, walking us through the constitutionality, the legality of the bill that's been passed today, and some of the concerns that have been raised by the opposition parties. But we're getting a piece of breaking news. The Prime Minister has just tweeted on the passage of the Women's Reservation Bill. The Lok Sabha has voted overwhelmingly and passed the Women's Reservation Bill. Remember, this is the first bill passed in the new Parliament building. The Prime Minister has tweeted, and I quote, I thank MPs across party lines who have voted in support of this bill. The Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam is a historic legislation which will further boost women's empowerment and will enable even greater participation of women in our political process. Payal Mehta has more details on this. So it must be particularly pleasing for the BJP and for the Prime Minister that the very first piece of legislation that's been passed in the People's House, in the Lok Sabha, in this new Parliament building, is the Women's Reservation Bill.
Yes, the Women's Reservation Bill, Raka, is one step away from becoming history and becoming a law of sorts, because tomorrow the bill is going to come into the Rajya Sabha. Having said that, support came in from various political parties, even though there were amendments which were moved, but people withdrew their amendments the moment they realized that this was for a larger cause and nobody wanted to be seen on the wrong side of not supporting women. Having said that, the moment the bill was passed, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, bowed down before the entire Parliament, before all the MPs, thanking them, folding his hands in gratitude. And similarly, Rajnath Singh, Amit Shah, senior members of the government were also seen doing the same thing. So obviously it means a lot in terms of the brand that Modi has been speaking about, that women-led development is something that they've been promoting in a big, big way. And what a big day it is for Arjuna Meghwal. Remember, he was made the law minister just a couple of months ago, and this is his big debut in Lok Sabha as a law minister. And it seems this kind of support really come in as well.
All right, Payal Mehta, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us. The Prime Minister, like I said, has just tweeted about this historic legislation. As we wrap up what has been a pretty important day in Parliament, I want to bring you some reactions that have been coming in from, of course, people who spoke, ministers who spoke, other leaders of both opposition as well as the Treasury benches that spoke today in what is a remarkable day, truly, for Indian democracy, for the representation of women across parliament and state legislatures. So a collection of reactions from both the Treasury and opposition benches. Thank you very much for tuning in to Brass Tacks. I'll catch you tomorrow night, same time.
केंद्रीय मंत्री स्मृति ईरानी हमारे साथ, हम उनसे बात करते हैं। महिला आरक्षण बिल लोकसभा में पारित हो गया है, पहली प्रतिक्रिया।
मैं इतना ही कहूँगी, हमने इतिहास को गढ़ते देखा, जो इतिहास लिखने में माहिर हैं, जिन्होंने बहुत सारी विषम परिस्थितियों से राजनीतिक तौर से गुजरते हुए कई ऐसी पुरानी चुनौतियों को समाधान तक पहुँचाया। ऐसे हमारे राष्ट्र सेवक प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी का विशेष आभार, अभिनंदन। देश भर की महिलाएं अभिभूत हैं कि वर्षों से चले आ रहे संघर्ष को समाधान आज लोकसभा में मिला। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने कहा था संकल्प से सिद्धि का ये दौर है। आप देखें, भवन में कदम रखते ही पहला संकल्प जो लिया, आज वो सिद्धि में परिवर्तित हुआ लोकसभा में। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी को बहुत आभार और देश की बहनों को बहुत अभिनंदन।
कई सांसद थे, वो नदारद भी थे, 80 से ज़्यादा थे।
मैं इतना ही कहना चाहूँगी कि वो न मोदी जी की ताकत को रोक सके, न मोदी जी के पीछे महिला शक्ति की ताकत को रोक चुके। मैं इतना ही कहना चाहूँगी, जो आज नदारद रहे या फिर जिन्होंने आज बढ़ चढ़ के कल हमारा बिल बोला और आज उसी बिल के लिए गायब रहे, मैं इतना ही कहना चाहूँगी कि मोदी है तो मुमकिन है। आप भी जानते थे मुमकिन है, इसीलिए शायद आप जश्न में शामिल ना होना चाह रहे हों, लेकिन अंततोगत्वा ये जश्न, ये उत्सव राष्ट्र की महिलाओं का है जो आनंदित है। आज हम छोटी दिवाली मना रहे हैं क्योंकि आज लोकसभा में पारित हुआ है, हमारे लिए बड़ा स्वरूप है, और कल राज्यसभा में पारित होगा, तो उत्सव से कम नहीं। और जो आने वाली पीढ़ी है हमारी बेटियों की, उनके लिए तो आज मैं विशेष बधाई देती हूँ। मेरा ये गौरव है कि मेरी पीढ़ी ने ये स्वप्नों को साकार होते देखा प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी की छत्रछाया में।
कल का दिन भारतीय संसद के इतिहास में स्वर्ण अक्षरों से लिखा जाएगा। कल गणेश चतुर्थी थी, कल संवत्सरी थी, कल नए सदन का पहली बार कार्य का श्री गणेश हुआ, और कल ही के दिन वर्षों से जो लंबित था वो महिलाओं को आरक्षण अधिकार देने का बिल इस सदन में पेश हुआ। इस देश की माता, इस देश की मातृशक्ति, इस देश की बेटी न केवल नीतियों के अंदर अपना हिस्सा पाएगी, नीति निर्धारण करने में भी अपने पद को सुरक्षित कर पाएगी। कुछ पार्टियों के लिए महिला सशक्तिकरण, माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, एक राजनीतिक मुद्दा हो सकता है। कुछ पार्टियों के लिए महिला सशक्तिकरण का नारा ये चुनाव जीतने का एक हथियार हो सकता है, परंतु मेरी पार्टी और मेरे नेता नरेंद्र मोदी जी के लिए महिला सशक्तिकरण राजनीतिक मुद्दा नहीं है। धूम धक्की धूप में मई महीने में पटवारी से लेकर मुख्यमंत्री तक पूरी की पूरी सरकार 5 दिनों तक गर्ल चाइल्ड एनरोलमेंट के लिए गांव-गांव में जाती थी। कोई कस्बा ऐसा नहीं होता था जहां पर सरकार के पदाधिकारी नहीं जाते थे। कांग्रेस पार्टी जो लेगेसी छोड़कर गई थी गुजरात में, उसमें प्राइमरी एजुकेशन में 37% ड्रॉप आउट रेशियो था, और मोदी जी जब मुख्यमंत्री से प्रधानमंत्री बनने के आए तब वो 30% ड्रॉप आउट रेशियो घटकर 0.70% हो गया।
On the killing of that Khalistani journalist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. Justin Trudeau has also not got enough support from Australia, US, UK or France. Australia, US and UK, they have expressed their official statement, they're expressing their deep concern over the issue, and they have broadly opinionated that the law will take its own course and the law should continue its further investigation. Justin Trudeau is yet to give any solid evidence or substantiate what allegation he has put against India, charging Indian agencies' role. And meanwhile, we have seen multiple, groups in Canada. They have expressed their opinion on the issue. Canadian opposition leaders are asking for more evidences. There are MPs from Liberal Party of Justin Trudeau's party. They have expressed that okay, the law will take its own course, and they would like investigation to further go and reveal facts. But what facts, what evidence Justin Trudeau has with him on which he has raised this issue at such a high diplomatic level, that remains a mystery. We have it is unprecedented that Canadian government has expelled a senior Indian diplomat who was chief or of RNW in Canada, stationed in Canada. Reciprocating the same, Indian side has also expelled a senior diplomat from Canada, and this has further nosedived the already downsliding bilateral relationship. Just a week ago, Canadian government has also put a pause on the free trade agreement that India and Canada have been negotiating. So probably Justin Trudeau already had in mind what he was going to announce a week later, and in that context, he had paused those free trade agreement deal with India. Also, the latest travel advisory that has been announced by the Canadian side, they have been continuously asking Canadian citizens to avoid going to places where the militancy could be a problem, security issues could be a problem. Canadian Prime Minister has also said that India needs to take this matter with the utmost seriousness, and we are doing that. We are not looking to provoke or escalate. So in a way, he was trying to bring down his anger with India when he was saying that he is not trying to provoke India, just that he wants to have an investigation and cooperation from the Indian side. India has already turned the allegation as an absurd and motivated, saying, in the past also we have seen External Affairs Minister saying that there are local or domestic political compulsion that is the reason why Canadian government has been reluctant to act against these perpetrators of Khalistani terrorism in Canada, and even more, they have been at times siding along with these terrorist groups and terrorist sympathizers in Canada, and that has been a real security concern for Indian official, Indian foreign Indian diplomats, deputed in Canada, Indian community members who have been living in Canada, the Sikh, Hindu, and other groups from India who have been living in harmony and peace in Canada for the last several decades. But in recent years, these elements, these fringe elements that Canadian government has called in the name of freedom of expression and democratic right to protest, they have tried to create a rift among the community member, and they have also raised some serious security concerns for India, for its sovereignty and territorial integrity when they tried to call for secessionist referendum and a separate Khalistani state. So probably Canadian government is trying to look away from all those point of view of India's concern and trying to just portray India as a killer who has gone who has become an extrajudicial killer in a foreign land, without putting substantial evidences in the public domain.
As I've said, India, the government of India, needs to take this matter with the utmost seriousness. We are doing that. We are not looking to provoke or escalate. We are simply laying out the facts as we understand them, and we want to work with the government of India to lay everything clear and to ensure that there is proper process.
After Justin Trudeau, Canadian Prime Minister has alleged Indian agencies' role in killing of dreaded terrorist from Khalistan group, Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada in earlier this year in the month of June. There has been massive diplomatic fallout between the two sides. There has been expulsion of diplomats, senior diplomats from both the sides, and now Canada has also started to advise its citizens to have some caution in particular areas while traveling to India. The latest advisory that has been updated just 2 days ago has been, for India, says that the people in Canada who are traveling to India should avoid all travel to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir due to the unpredictable security situation. There is a threat of terrorism, militancy, civil unrest and kidnapping. This advisory excludes traveling to or within the Union Territory of Ladakh, and Canada has stated the advisory for India, marking it an exercise, a high degree of caution. That caution has clearly come in the wake of allegation that Justin Trudeau has made based on certain evidences that he has only with him. He has not shared with his parliamentarian colleagues or with opposition leaders in Canada or with any of the member countries of G7 or Five Eyes with whom he has been expecting some kind of support. In fact, there has been reports that says that USA has expressed its reluctance to be siding with Canada on the issue of Canadian government's uproar on alleged role of Indian agency on the killing of that Khalistani journalist.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. We've been tracking Justin Trudeau's clash with India. The situation has escalated in the last 24 hours. Indians, especially Hindus in Canada, are being threatened by Khalistanis. New Delhi has issued a travel advisory asking Indian citizens to exercise a high degree of caution while in Canada. Meanwhile, Trudeau has dialed down his tone. The opposition in Canada is demanding proof of Indian involvement in Nijjar's killing. And the international ally